getting good rain. Oh, really?
Please rise for the invocation. Reverend David Roberts. Let's see. You give the invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed upon us. Thank you for this wonderful place called Hickory, North Carolina. Please instill in us the wisdom to do your will, to make this a better place for all the citizens of our fair city. Be with us tonight as we make decisions for the future. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call on Steve Rector to introduce the scouts from Troop 341, St. Peter's Lutheran.
I'm glad to be with you tonight for Boy Scout Troop 341, as he said, Lutheran Church. We've got 10 fine young men here attending for requirements for merit badges in advance. We thank you for having us.
Thank you, sir. And we have some interns. We're going to ask them to stand up and introduce themselves, please.
Hi, I'm Shane Rosenberg.
I'm Will Pitts.
I'm Jerry Abernathy.
I'm Ryan DeWitt.
I'm Nathan Green.
Bunch of them.
And I think
That it?
somewhere Trevor is somewhere. Who lost Trevor? Well, thank you all. This is our crew from Leadership 2000 at Hickory High. Let's have a nice hand for them, please. And that young lady is from Elon University. All right. Okay, I'm going to call Linda Sheehan, Director of Education and Outreach from Alpha.
Hello.
And anyone else that Linda would like to bring with her.
I'll bring you.
This is National HIV Testing Day. Whereas the medical condition known as HIV and AIDS was first detected in the U.S. 30 years ago, with the epidemic now entering its fourth decade. Whereas HIV cases that were undetected in advanced AIDS result in numerous complications, costly hospitalization, and an increased risk of death. Whereas ending the HIV/AIDS epidemic is a community as well as an individual responsibility, and whereas in 1995 the first National HIV Testing Day was launched and continues annually on the 27th day of June. Now therefore, on behalf of Hickory City Council, I proclaim June 27, 2014 as National HIV Testing Day in the City of Hickory. There's going to be pictures, all right?
Good.
You good?
Got it.
Quick drop.
I'm just going to tell you, for those of you who don't know about Alpha and what we do, we are an AIDS service organization, and we serve the Eagle Ford area all the way up to the Virginia border. We serve case management for clients who are infected with HIV and AIDS. They offer access to medication. They help with housing. and medical care, because it can be quite expensive. And my department, which is the education side, we offer free presentations on HIV and AIDS, and we also offer free HIV testing, in which you can get your results in as little as 15 minutes. And in the last 3 months, we have seen a huge outbreak in our community, so much so that it's got the attention of the state. So it is still a big concern for our community, and those folks it is. And we thank you very much for this. Thank you.
Karen Hurd. You want to bring up your...
She is the one, Mayor.
I was here to break an ankle.
So this is the resolution honoring the Hickory budget staff upon receipt of the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the umpteenth year. Whereas the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has bestowed upon the City of Hickory's budget office the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the 19th consecutive year. Whereas this award is the highest form of recognition in governmental budgeting, representing a significant achievement by the city and reflecting the commitment of the city to meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting and disclosure. Whereas in order to receive this award, the Hickory Budget Office satisfied nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation that are designed to assess how well the city's budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. Now therefore be it resolved that the Hickory City Council hereby recognizes and honors the Budget Office staff upon receipt of the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for every year since 1905. I'm the only one who was here.
It would be umpteenth.
A lot of hours go into that award. And now Mr. Alan Jackson of the Business Development Committee will present an award.
Hello, members of the City Council, Mayor Wright, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone. Glad to see everybody here tonight. I'm so glad to be here for another I have so much fun coming up here. I say this every time I get up here, when we get to recognize a business in our area that has really helped build Hickory the way we know it. And tonight's recipient of the Business Well Crafted Award that our Business Development Committee would like to give can honestly say they've helped build Hickory, literally. Because I'm going to tell you a little bit about the firm tonight, AB Architect PA. It's a long-standing architectural firm located here in Hickory. The firm was founded in 1935 by Dallas Carroll AB Sr., has been integral to the design of much of downtown Hickory. For almost 80 years, this family business has designed churches, hospitals, businesses, and homes. In 1978, Dallas AB Jr. became a full partner of the business, eventually leading the company after his father's retirement. The elder AB concentrated heavily on building homes until World War II, when his focus changed, as did the focus of many Americans. He began to design Army hospitals, worked extensively on the Manhattan Project in Tennessee. After the war, he partnered with someone to design Lutheridge, a Lutheran camp up in Arden, North Carolina, we're familiar with. He went on to work on churches while also designing many homes and commercial spaces. Meanwhile, Dallas AB Jr. graduated from Hickory High School, majored in architecture at NC State College of Design, which I'm going to excuse him for, but that's okay. NC State's okay school. And upon completing his studies, moved to Asheville. He worked with 6 associates, a large firm that worked all over Western North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. One of Dallas AB Jr.'s most memorable early projects was student housing at Appalachian State University, which was great. He also worked extensively on the Memorial Mission Hospital in Asheville. In 1965, Dallas AB Jr. moved back to Hickory and began working at his father's firm. During this time, Hickory was a bustling manufacturing town, and AB Architect was quite busy designing furniture plants, including Hickory Furniture, Century Furniture, Hickory Chair, and textile mills, including Wisnet Mill and Klein Hosiery Mill. From 1974 to 1977, Hickory experienced a downtown urban renewal. AB Architect PA was responsible for redesigning over half of downtown Hickory during this time. Much of the overall look of the city center was developed by Dallas AB Jr. and his father. Dallas AB Jr. has been an outstanding citizen of Hickory, born and raised here, leaving only for the Army, college, and a brief misguided stint in Nashville. But we welcomed him back home after being in Nashville, and he's been calling Hickory home ever since. He and his wife Judy raised 3 children here and have been involved in many civic projects and activities. We're honored to have the opportunity to present AB Architect PA with the Business Well Crafted Award for their many, many years of service and literally helping us build the city that we all love so much today. If I could ask Dallas AB Jr. and his family and the other representatives to come join us up front, I'd like to present him with this award and his firm. Not very often we can be saying thanks to somebody who's had such a visual footprint on the city around us, but these guys have made it happen. So thank you so much for all your years of service. We really appreciate it. Is there anything you'd like to say?
If I would, I think one of the main benefits of being in Hickory are the people. And that is from city and county government to people in my field, which is the construction field. And the people are they're just great. And I've enjoyed a long and hopefully continued relationship with the people. Thanks again.
You were just as important on this, so you get a photo too. Absolutely. Good? Thank you very much.
We have tonight a number of important things on the agenda, but one of the important things is will be a department report on approval of a resolution to direct publication of notice of intent to apply to local government commission for a bond referendum that, if passed tonight, if the resolution is passed, the referendum will be conducted at the November elections. This is a very important matter, and this is the kind of thing that some people would say, well, why don't you have a public hearing on this? This is the sort of thing that doesn't call for a public hearing because the hearing will be the vote of the people in November. We do want to hear anything that anyone would like to say about this referendum, proposed referendum, before we have that report, and the time to do so will be now during the section of the meeting set aside for people who want to be heard. We have already signed up Mr. Steve Ivester, who would like to speak on a couple of topics. As always, we do keep time. We sort of set a guideline of 3 minutes, and you will be reminded at 3, 6, 9 minutes. But we have a commitment that we don't want people leaving here who had something important to say and didn't get a chance to say it.
On 2 topics, I may need about 5 minutes, no more. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Berry, and Mr. Cron of the Council, I rise this evening to speak on 2 topics. First, I wrote and spoke to you on and around the March 21st public hearing asking you not to sell the Cloninger Mill corner to MAB. I see that now we have a debt request for indefinite extension on their due diligence period. While the city is holding earnest money of $45,000, I understand this money can be reclaimed by a simple cancellation request from MAB and for no other reason. At the March 21st meeting, I asked you to consider the proposal by Ms. Greathouse that would have bought the city $900,000 immediately in return for a promise to keep that land as part of the proposed park. Ms. Greathouse's proposal was a surprise to you as well as me. You chose not to ask her a single question about her proposal. For the record, the next day I called Ms. Greathouse and I asked the question, were you empowered to write a check to the city last night for $900,000? Her answer was a simple yes. She did not choose to discuss beyond that. Now, I don't know why not one of you asked her at least that simple question before your vote. It sure made it seem that the outcome had been decided before the public hearing. In fairness, on the Hal Rove show the next Monday, the mayor said that he voted against the sale, hoping to preserve both the land and money for the city while finding a nearby alternate site for the maybe upscale grocery store. I agree with that thinking. A motion to table may have sufficed. On the second issue, and that's because this is the only chance we're going to get to address this issue.
Except in November.
Huh?
But in November and the months leading up to that.
I would like to discuss the proposed bond issues. Plural, I hope. I am on the Innovate Catawba Inspiring Community Committee. I have attended all or most of its meetings. I have attended several public inspiring spacing events, and I have watched the recent bond issue presentation by staff at Ridgeview on YouTube. For clarification, I did not participate in or vote for the Citizens for Equity in Government initiative. I do not represent any group, interest, or party except myself. My concern is the integrity of process in City Hall. While the sale project is liked by many, others still have concerns with it. But all do not have to agree. The funds used were from the parking fees and were supposed to build a parking deck near Union Square. However, this diversion to the sales project was probably within your proper authority. But I must say that I resent that the fund was treated almost as a slush fund beyond the concerns or interests of the citizens of Hickory. In fact, I was told that right here in these chambers by staff the night you decided to proceed with the project. As I said, my concern is integrity of process. By your own breakdown, the project ran at least 73% over the original budget. You show total cost of $496,056 versus an original budget of $285,976, 73% over. And I am not convinced that all city direct labor was included in those figures. I am a licensed professional engineer and understand that projects can run over budget. My real concern here is that the citizens never received a simple accounting of how and with whom the funds were spent or who had staff responsibility for the project. I had been told by a former city department head that in staff meetings they were told that the citizens have no right to clarification under the NC Freedom of Information laws. Without getting into well-publicized details on this project, city staff proceeded on that theory with unfair and unfortunate consequences. In short, I think the high-handed and irresponsible behavior of the city staffs on the sales project cast doubt on city staff's ability to manage any project of this type. I like many aspects of the Inspiring Spaces proposal. However, what was guessed to be a $90 million project has suddenly become a $25 million bond issue. Someone's not shooting straight. And I think the city staff needs to show its ability to responsibly handle smaller projects first. Further, recent apparent efforts to dodge the political responsibility for needed tax increases are not an appropriate use of proceeds from a bond issue. On the other hand, I do think the proposed industrial park fills a real and immediate need for jobs in our area. And it fits pleas that I have heard from the Economic Development Corporation for the past several years for major development sites, major industrial sites in our area. I do wish that I understood better if this will be like Fairgrove Business Park with the city owning the land, or more like Catawba Boulevard and similar projects where the city has basically enriched the budding landowners to create tax base. Either strategy has its place, but the citizens deserve to know now. I urge you to put the $15 million bond issue for the industrial park on the ballot this November, but to delay any bond on improvements in the city until another cycle. I'd like to submit this to the city clerk, and I have copies for each of you. Thank you.
Could I ask you one, did you say that a $90 million proposal became a $40 million?
No, $80 million.
$80 million?
Am I wrong that you said that one time this thing might cost $80 million?
Well, you're finished, right?
I'm finished.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what you said.
Yeah, was I wrong? Did you say that?
Well, I'm gonna talk next.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. I have said consistently and believe strongly that the $40 million is just priming the pump. That we are going to have personal investments, we're going to have state and federal grants, and we're going to have philanthropic investments that will take $40 million, if that's the amount approved, and make it 120 or more. So yeah, we've talked about a lot of numbers that we think ultimately will be invested in Hickory if we prime that pump. And all you have to look at is the North Ryan Boulevard and the $500,000 to $800,000 total that we have in that, and the $18 million of investment that will be there when Moretz Mills is finished. That's the concept. We have never talked about the taxpayers being asked to spend $80 or $90 million. Thank you. Motion to approve the minutes of June 3rd.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Seaver, second by Zagaroli. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion's carried. I'm going to ask also something I meant to ask and failed to. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I would, Your Honor. Mayor. Got courts on my mind since I had to go file papers in Newton today. Mayor, City Council, Mr. Berry, and Attorney Crown, thank you for giving me time to be heard on the Inspiring Spaces bond referendum. As you know, I have spoken several meetings ago against this bond referendum. It does not surprise me at how many people in our fair city is against this referendum, but does not come forth to let you know that they are against it. I would like to thank Mr. Ivester for his comments and say to you, I have the same feeling about the management of funds raised by this city council, this city, and being used for other things that it was not being raised for. I have the same doubt in my mind about how you use taxpayers' monies for the things that you have a vested interest in. And when I say a vested interest, it's either to support what close friends, family members, or others that have control over this council want, and not what is in the best interest of all citizens of our city. I see all of these dilapidated buildings that remain, that you have in the past promised to bring down for the betterment of communities, but yet and still those buildings are still standing. Like the old Southern Desk building that you have been working on for over a year to bring it down, but it's still standing. I also made a phone call last week to the School of Government about conflict of interest. And I think that it was surprising to me to find out what I found out when I asked certain questions. For example, Mr. Leal one of our city council members is engaged and supposed to be getting married in November to one of the CEOs of Land Design. But yet and still he voted to approve that group to do the planning for Inspiring Spaces. Then at one of the meetings I found out that, and I don't know what relationship this person is, but they hold the last name of Zagaroli. I don't know if it's council member Zagaroli's daughter-in-law, or wife that was part of the group that was formed to discuss and vote on Inspiring Spaces. I know for a fact that when y'all met with the group Land Design out of Charlotte, y'all found out from their attorney that the group that y'all put together to come up with this design from Lenore Ryan to 6th Street Northwest and Southwest, that there were individuals sitting on that committee that you chose, and you chose them because you knew they would be a rubber stamp for what you as a city council wanted, and not what the overall community wanted. I ask you, how can we always come up with money, however you decide to do it, for the things that you want, that you claim beautifies our city, when you're only targeting certain areas of our city? Just like you target Union Square with the sales on the square that you spent. We estimate, and when I say we, myself and others in this city, to be almost $1 million, and you say it was less than $500,000 or right at $500,000. But yet and still, you dipped into funds that were set aside for other projects. Those projects have never come about, but the money was used. Just like this city raises $5 from every tag purchased in this county or this city from the tag office, but yet and still that money does not go for sidewalks, because I called a week ago or a week and a half ago about the sidewalks on 2nd Avenue between 3rd and 1st Street Southwest because of all of the torn up pavement or concrete of the sidewalk. And I was given a call back by Public Works that told me it would be about 2 weeks before that could be done. And I just cannot imagine why
6 minutes.
we have so many things that need to be cared for, but yet and still you can't ever seem to find the time or money to do it unless it's something that you want done. I do not feel like we as citizens have to come to you and ask you to do things that you have street workers, public works workers, police officers, and others that are up and down these streets every day of the week, 7 days a week, that don't notice the things that need to be done for the betterment of communities and citizens who have no choice but to utilize them. And just like I said a few minutes ago, I went to Newton today to file papers on a lawsuit that I personally have because of an injury on a sidewalk that was caused by a trash can sitting in the middle of a walk on a one-way street that was not removed when trash was picked up on Wednesday in that area, but it was Friday when the incident occurred that I was injured. And I was told, when I called to report it. Well, we have 3 days to remove something after we made aware of it. And I ask, how many public works employees traveled that road from Wednesday to Friday when that accident occurred that caused an injury, but yet and still you try to say we have no liability? And I beg to disagree that you do have liability. And I guarantee you that when this goes before a jury, which I have asked for, they will find you negligent, and when they do, it would have cost a whole lot more to you as a city than it would be if Mr. Berry had simply said, when I made him aware of it and met with him and met with the risk manager, and I said, you know, make me an offer. But if you're not willing to do that, then it will cost you. And I guarantee you, it will cost you, because we as citizens of this city is tired of you doing whatever you feel like you can do with money that you raise from the citizens who live here, but do not want to do what you're saying we're raising that money for. So I hope that when this bond referendum comes up and the citizens vote no, that you will know that you're either going to have to do a better job or you're going to have to stop asking us, just like you did when you asked about the swimming pools that you closed down, and the citizens in Northwest, Northeast Hickory said, you can raise our taxes, we want a swimming pool in each quadrant of this city, but yet and still that vote is still sitting on the shelf collecting dust, and you're now talking about splash pads, which is not acceptable to any citizen of this city. Thank you.
Some of the people here do not come to meetings routinely. Mr. Pope has filed a number of suits against the city in the past, hasn't he?
I have filed several suits.
Is this the 30th? Is this the 30th, Mr. Pope?
Keeping your sidewalks free of obstructions and barriers. And Mayor, I'm going to tell you up front, when I leave this podium, I don't want to hear from you or anybody else. And I know that you will have your attorney write me another letter about my behavior, but you know, I really don't care.
I'm not going
because
to
I don't have to read
any
it,
letter
and I won't read it.
Mr. Pope, you turned around, you finished your time.
Well, I finished my time, and I don't want you talking and responding to what I've had to say. When you say we cannot answer questions that you might have at the time of your presentation. So I'm just saying to you now, and I'm saying to the rest of this council, I don't want to hear from any of you when I'm at the podium or when I walk away from the podium. There's only 2 people that can respond to what I say, and I will respect. One of them is my father, which is now deceased, and the other is my mother, which is 89 years old, and I still have respect for her because she's my mother. Other than that, none of you have a right to respond unless I ask for it, and I didn't ask for a response.
Okay, well, I'm going to exercise my right of free speech. I didn't ask anybody, I did not care whether anybody respects it or not, and I didn't ask for that.
And I won't listen.
But I will tell you, Mr. Pope, the only thing I want to respond to other than that is the comment about control of this council. I don't know who has control of this council. I know I don't have any control over this council. I know, Mr. Pope.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Mr. Pope be declared out of order.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second that Mr. Pope be declared out of order. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Mr. Pope, if you refuse to follow the decorum that we want you to follow, we're going to have to ask you to leave this meeting from this point forward.
This is a public building. I will be here until I'm ready to leave.
We set the decorum for these meetings, the taxpayers and voters of this city, and so we are declaring the decorum. But I want everyone to understand that, to my knowledge, nobody has control of this council. Nobody has control of me. And only the taxpayers the voters have indirect control over me. And there's always elections, and people get to have their voice anytime we have an election. Do we have a motion to approve? Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of May 29th?
I move approval. Special meeting, May 29th.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lael, second by Ms. Patton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That vote is unanimous, and all members are present. Motion to reaffirm and ratify on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Meisner, second by Mr. Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion is carried. Anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to be approved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Meisner, second by Ms. Patton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Mr. Berry, informational items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 items of information are to report on your travel and Alderman Zagaroli's travel to Raleigh for the League of Municipalities Town Hall Day.
The thrust of that meeting, Mr. Zagaroli, you want to talk about what we talked about, the legislature's attempts to take away local control?
They were bound and determined that we needed to change that, the taxation that they're doing now, because it was a hidden tax, and there were many people that were speaking in favor of it, and several that were certainly not in favor of it. But it was a worthwhile meeting.
What I'm hearing now is that the privilege license may be back next year in some form, and of course, the argument against the privilege license is it's paid by business, and thus it's a hidden tax because it passed on to the consumers. Well, so are every other business tax, excise taxes, any sales taxes that they paid, any property taxes, gasoline taxes, excise taxes. So you could argue that the only non-hidden taxes are the ones that we individuals pay, and we're paying a bunch of taxes for the corporations. Why pull out $62 million in a state that has a $22 billion state budget and pull out that $62 million and hammer on it? There was some room for correcting inequities in that privilege license. But that's the main topic we had. There were a lot of others. The film tax credits you may have read about, the rehabilitation tax credits, which I think are probably safe for now. There are plenty of things going on down there. Mr. Berry, public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only public hearing on your agenda this evening. I will call on Mr. Cal Overby to come to the podium and present a resolution in order for petition of Stanford Place Associates to close a portion of the former Hickory North Crosstown Loop and 16th Street Northeast. I'd ask Mr. Overby to present that item to council before opening the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Wright, Ms. Council, and Mr. Crone. The item before you is a petition by Stanford Place Associates for the abandonment of several portions of right-of-way in what is currently the Austin's View, now Stanford Place development. To outline the areas of closure, I've indicated them red on the map. This portion of right-of-way here was actually dedicated by the city about a little over a decade ago for the construction of what is known as the North Crosstown. This was basically a connector that moves traffic from east to west across the city, and also a portion of right-of-way here as well as here. The reason these are like this is because 13th used to basically make this direction here. It was unimproved right-of-way until the city sold the property, and the property was developed, and about halfway through development fell into foreclosure, and it was then picked up by two local investors and developers here in Hickory, and they're renewing the development in place here. What the blue area on your map indicates is the new right-of-way that was dedicated for the North Crosstown. This was done as part of the project. The new owners came about and dedicated this right-of-way. This is currently the new street that has been there for several years. We just got right-of-way dedicated to it so we could begin maintenance. If council will recall, approximately 5 months ago was approval of a resolution to assume maintenance and dedication of this right-of-way. And where this fits in at, this is the area in question. And basically, this is our North Crosstown. This being Sandy Ridge Road, following down 14th, and then the continuation of 14th, and then it currently would terminate at A Street, drive northeast, and then at some point in the future, in some form or fashion, the idea is to continue it on westward in that area. The recommendation of staff is to approve the request for petition of closure with the requirement that a new plat be submitted that shows adequate easements for utilities that are currently on the ground. With that, I will close and answer any questions the council may have.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Overby. We will now open our public hearing. During the public hearing, we ask that people first speak who are opposed to the proposal, and then people who are in favor of the proposal. We allow 15 minutes for each side, keeping count every 3 minutes. We ask that you share your time. We also state again that, at least in the last 13 years, I don't know that anybody's ever been able to walk out of here and say they had something they wanted to say and they didn't get to say it. After the people who speak for and against, then we'll have an opportunity for rebuttal and serve rebuttal. I go through all of this, and 98% of the time, nobody speaks anyway. I declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone who'd like to speak against this proposal.
I'm not sure I'm against it, but it seems to me there should be a little clarification there. Can we see the slide back up? Mr. Overby said that this land was sold to a developer, and I don't think the land was sold to a developer. I think that the land was given to a developer in return for his paving that blue strip there. And I think if that's the case, that should be before the council and before the people. Perhaps if they didn't pay anything for their land in the beginning, they should pay something for their right-of-way now. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this proposal? Is there anyone who would like to speak for this proposal? There being no one desiring to speak, no one else desiring to speak, I declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion. And I'd like to start the discussion by asking Mr. Overby to respond to Mr. Ivester's statement, please.
Yeah. Basically, the city dedicated this right away, and the property was, transaction happened to Michelle D. Austin, I think it was 2003, 2004. Property basically fell into foreclosure about 2.5 years ago. Then it was picked up by a couple local developers. The city did dedicate this right away at that point in time for the future crosstown. We're looking for abandonment of this, and the new property owners are dedicating this right away, which is located on the street that was actually constructed. So we're giving right away in an area where the street was not built, mainly because this is all floodplain. impractical to build a street on top of this. Do not think we would get permitted through DENR nor the state to build a roadway and floodplain. And this is the new right-of-way that's dedicated. It is approximately 110 foot in width. Basically, the developer constructed a 2-lane roadway and provided grading for an additional 2 lanes at the time of construction. And the right-of-way was dedicated all the way to the property line here. There's a small gap between the end of 14th and the property on this property that they have no control over there, sir. That is basically how it all. You're basically abandoning a right-of-way, and you're getting the exact same right-of-way for the street, because the street essentially couldn't be built where the initial right-of-way was dedicated.
What did Mr. Austin pay for the property?
Excuse me, Mr. Ivester, we do not have those comments from the audience.
Does that adequately address your question, sir?
Anybody else have any other questions? Any further discussion? Motion to approve?
Close the public hearing.
Oh,
You already had.
I have, yeah.
My fault. Yeah, I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lael, second by Mrs. Patton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Next item of new business is a departmental report, and this is the departmental report that Mayor Wright referenced at the beginning of the meeting. I'll go ahead and present to you the time frame. In your agenda packet are the 3 resolutions that need to be adopted. Scott Leo, bond counsel with Parker & Poe, is here this evening. If you have more specific, detailed questions that aren't answered in the presentation, we'll call on Mr. Leo to come forward and discuss those with council. So as you learned at the meetings that you had in Charlotte several months ago, as we talked in detail with Mr. Leo about the bond process, there are a number of legally required steps that City Council has to take to initiate the referendum process. And this evening is really kind of the first official step that you take, and that is adoption or considering adopting 3 resolutions. A resolution directing the publication of notice of intent to apply to the Local Government Commission. So maybe just a little brief explanation of the Local Government Commission. North Carolina is one of the states in the country that exercises considerable oversight of its local governments through state agencies. The Local Government Commission was established, I believe, back in about the Depression era to make sure that cities did not overextend themselves and default on bonds and go into bankruptcy. I think, historically speaking, the LGC has been looked at as being a great asset to us as a state, because we have very strong cities and counties throughout the state, because they have to go through a pretty rigorous process when they're going to incur debt, and their financial statements are reviewed annually, etc. So you're basically saying that you intend to apply to the Local Government Commission, because the Local Government Commission has to approve the issuance of all debt from local governments in North Carolina. The second resolution is authorizing the staff to apply to the Local Government Commission. So obviously there's a little bit of redundancy there. Must have been put together by lawyers. The third is approval of a resolution making certain findings of fact, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So that's the first step this evening. Then the next things on your list will be on the 20th to do a publication of a notice in the paper that you've done this, to actually do the filing with the LGC on the 30th of June. Then you file on the 2nd of July a notice of joint legislative commission, which basically is getting yourself on the calendar for the LGC. file another statement on the 15th of July, and actually on the 15th of July, City Council will take another action to call for a public hearing, which would be at your first meeting in August. Now, that public hearing is, again, more technical and legal in nature. It's not per se a public hearing on the bond referendum, as the mayor adequately and accurately stated. The voters get to vote on it, so that's truly the referendum. But it's more a public hearing that says, did we follow all the proper steps? Have we done everything that we legally needed to do to move forward with the bond referendum? So you hold the public hearing on August 5th. You have additional filings, etc., that take place. Also in that time frame, you have a meeting with the local government commission. You present the projects, the LGC reviews your financials, etc., and then ultimately that leads up to the November 4th bond referendum. So the item for your consideration this evening is in your packet, and it's those 3 resolutions. Pull those up right quick. So the resolution of City Council directing the publication of notice of intent to apply to the Local Government Commission for bonds states that you are seeking $25 million for bonds to provide funds to pay the cost of constructing, reconstructing, enlarging, extending, improving certain streets, roads, and intersections, and including the cost of related studies, plans, and designs, streetscape and pedestrian improvements, relocation of utilities, signage, parking lots, and related facilities, acquiring, constructing, reconstructing, or improving sidewalks, curbs, gutters, drains, bridges, overpasses, underpasses, and grade crossings, and providing related landscaping, lighting, and traffic controls, signage, signals, and markers, and providing pedestrian and bicycle paths and related facilities, and the acquisition of land, rights of way, and easements required thereof. That first one, we had a lot of conversation about buckets. So basically, state statute lays out the categories that you have to work within to issue the debt legally. Mr. Leo's reviewed the projects that are being proposed for the bond resolution, and at your workshop actually laid forward to you that this statement that I just read and the category that relates to in the general statutes is adequate to address the transportation components. The second part of the resolution states $15 million of bonds to provide funds to pay the cost of providing land and improvements suitable for industrial and commercial purposes, including the acquisition of land, rights of way, and easements for industrial and commercial purposes, and providing public infrastructure and facilities in order to make land and improvements suitable for industrial and commercial purposes. So that's the first resolution for City Council to consider this evening. And the other resolutions have the same language. I won't read them, but they are simply the other legal components that you need to consider this evening to start the process of a bond referendum for the topics discussed and slated to be held at the November general election. And I'll be glad to answer questions, or we'll be happy to ask Mr. Leo to further clarify or provide other explanations as needed.
So we want to vote on this separately?
You have 3 resolutions, Mr. Mayor, and I would suggest that you consider each of them separately and vote on each of them separately, yes.
Well, I make a motion that we approve item A, a resolution directing publication of notice with the LGC and application to the LGC and resolution making certain findings of fact. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Seaver. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
The second item is obviously related to the bond referendum, and that is to consider a letter of engagement with the firm of Parker & Poe as general obligation bond counsel. And I'll have Mr. Warren Wood come to the podium and present that to council.
Right, members of City Council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone. As we discussed in Charlotte and along the way during this process, now that City Council has decided to move forward with the bond referendum process, we will need to engage a bond counsel for this to jump through all the legal hoops and to make sure we stay on track with the law related to the process. So the first engagement letter, or the first agreements with Parker Poe's, probably the most prominent bond counsel firm in the country, and we would recommend approval to engage them for this process.
Any questions? Motion to approve? So moved.
Second.
Mr. Meisner?
Second.
Made the motion. Mr. Guest seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
And secondly, we'll also need to engage a financial services firm for pre-planning services related to this process on the financial side, outside the legal side, as well as also the bond transaction phase. If the bonds are approved, obviously we have to go sell. They help us with the rating agencies in New York and help us go to the market, sell the bonds and that sort of thing. So that's the second agreement we would need, and that's with First Southwest Financial. And they came to your meeting that you had in Charlotte a couple of months ago to do a presentation.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Patton, second by Lael. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Appointments.
I have two. Community Relations Council, Mr. Ray Serta, and also the Community Relations Council Commission, Mr. Grover Lineberger.
I want to make an appointment to the Business Development Committee. Ms. Dana Chambers, or Dr. Dana Chambers.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Lloyd Coley Jr. to Parks and Recreation. And jointly, I guess, we're nominating the representatives to the Youth Council. Any additional appointments?
No, I will say that I've got somebody, an agent's found for me for the Art Commission, but I haven't spoken to him personally yet. But a year later, we finally found somebody. I'm hoping.
Okay. You have a motion to approve these?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Guest, second by Zagaroli. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask you to the council to take a look at the Hickory Regional Planning Commission. You have some reappointment opportunities there if you choose to bring this to your attention, because you don't meet again until the middle of July. And if the Planning Commission holds another meeting, well, I guess actually they would meet the end of July, so you would have another opportunity. We didn't know if that was just an oversight on your part or not.
I would move that we reappoint Reverend Wallace Johnson and also Randall Mays and Dr. John Eldridge.
I'll second that.
Motion by Patton, second by Lael. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Matters not on the agenda? Any general comments? Well, I'll tell you, we got a birthday today.
And it's a big one.
And it's a guy who, when he took this job, had no gray hair. Not a one.
No, I didn't.
Did you say we did it to him?
In addition to this job, he's raised some teenagers during those years. But Mr. Burry is turning 50.
Today.
Look here, look at that And we're going to sing happy birthday.
And the fire department is here.
Oh, my
And we want everyone to get a slice of cake on their way out. Scouts, that includes you.
Wait a minute, we ain't saying happy birthday.
Oh, we're going to sing happy birthday.
Gotta make a wish. Oh, it's the old trick match. Yeah, I bet them won't stay that long.
Wait a minute, this must be 10-year candles each.
Well, I tell you, 10 years ago on my birthday, I was at a manager's conference in Asheville, and I got a call from Mayor Wright asking me if I'd come down and meet with himself and Attorney Crone to talk about my employment with the City of Hickory. Remember that, Mayor? That was on my birthday.
Yeah.
And so on my birthday 10 years ago was probably the highlight of, was definitely the highlight of my professional career to this point, having the opportunity to come and work with this city council and this great community. So,
Well, I'm hoping that the approval of the bond referendum tonight will be the second highlight of your career, and then we'll figure out what to do when you're 60. Okay, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Big. Happy birthday to you.
was this your idea?
The cake will be on the corner of that table. Well, Mick, I want you, when I turn 60, I want you to do the same thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Me too.
We got a while.
You turn 60.
I thought you was already 60.
I've reinvented myself.
About 60 again.
Okay. Motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Motion by Meisner, second by Zagaroli. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Thank you all for being there. Grab a slice of cake. Order.